Holy gosh darn almighty, Dandadan Episode 2 was action-packed with some of the best art direction and design that I've seen in recent memory. The fight with the Flatwoods Monster, in fact, already may be one of my favorite moments of the series, so we're going to break all of that down and more. So before we jump into the video, a quick reminder to just be good to yourself. You know, it seems like the world is out to get us, but in reality, we are thriving in so many other ways, and there is so much to be hopeful. After all, being hopeful is the Dandadan way. Gamersupps is popping off. Tomorrow, while supplies last, they are dropping their Senpai Problems waifu cups and merch. I can say with my collection of waifu cups that I am extremely happy with them, and honestly, I think I may cave and pick up Senpai Problems as well. So use code CTACTICS to get 10% off all orders site-wide. It gives me a little kickback in the process, which is actually helping me fund to go back to college eventually. But enough blabbing, time for some Dandadan. So one of the best aspects of Dandadan, as I mentioned before and will continue to mention for the rest of time, is that it has a way of being positive in the face of some really grave moments. This is one of them. After surviving a near-fatal death and with Ken being cursed, both of them still have enough within them to joke around. Momo gives Ken the nickname Okarun because she's so shy and weak to men that in any way resemble Ken Takakura. It also shows that Yukinobu Tatsu is the master at embracing some really simple setups. Girl has an obsession? Well, what if the nerd is named Ken Takakura then? It's just fun, right? I mean, the scene is so unserious that Okarun even farts on Momo's face. Momo and Okarun really have instant chemistry, which makes them instantly shippable, which is another fun aspect of Dandadan. In this community, we embrace the positive side of pretty much everything we can, and this is one of them. So upon arriving at their home, Momo tells him he can stay until tonight as there are ghosts and goblins which roam about that could harm him. She also mentions how her grandmother nearly killed her last boyfriend, so she warns Okarun to be careful. And you know, honestly, with the way Momo acts, if I was told that, I wouldn't want to enter that residence. I would be way too scared of her grandmother. But we see this beautiful animation when Okarun enters the residence and is set on fire, which forces Momo to use her new powers to throw him into a stream, which ruins his entire day and hair. But I even love the Terminator thumbs up reference, which just adds to the hilarity. But I do admit the animation for that move from Momo was just so fluid. But it really just feels like this director knew exactly what he wanted and executed on it with confidence throughout. Momo spots the ward on the pillar and takes it off so that Okarun may enter. And that being said, you know some bad stuff is going to go down when Momo thinks it's, you know, it'll be okay if we take this mystic barrier down, right? Yep, Momo and Okarun, they may be a little dumb. This is doubly backed up when Momo laughs at Okarun for his new perm. And God, I love their chemistry. Nothing really seems to faze them when they are together. It's like their instant chemistry was much like a mystic barrier in the sense that they sort of give each other the things they need. Momo gets a boyfriend he has to protect, and Okarun gets the girlfriend he needs to protect. And together, this shores them up. It's subtle, but it's really cute. And it's such a simple joke too, but I was laughing when Momo went to change and Okarun immediately turned into his Turbo Granny form. I mean, it's just a funny way to set up that Momo needs to basically see Okarun at all times to make sure his powers are under control. Really clever. Show, don't tell. But the awkwardness of these two knows no bounds, as Momo, with no tact at all, asks Okarun to show him his junk. Why? Well, because Turbo Granny ate his junk and, well, she wants to see it. And sure enough, his junk ain't nowhere to be found. I give my condolences to all men out there who are missing their junk. Ripperoni, rippy rippy. However, this leads to a very poignant moment in which Okarun opens up about why he's sticking with this girl who is technically making fun of him. Why? Because he didn't want to pass up this moment, his one chance to not only get to know Momo, but also, more importantly, to make a friend. The boy for years was neglected and had nobody to help him, to support him when in need. And for that reason, he feels as if he shouldn't even continue being in contact with Momo after this event. That Momo is too good of a person, too special, too pretty. He's building up an excuse, basically, to not face rejection of any kind. This is a defense mechanism to cope with his insecurity that he's too much of a nerd, and being a nerd is less than a human in the eyes of many, and it's in the eyes of him too. Momo is like an angel to him because she's all of those things he finds special. Momo is confident, she's a nerd, she has strong beliefs, and her moral code is very straightforward, and all of that is wrapped up in what you see in front of you. I mean, that's crazy for someone like Okarun. It's the qualities that Okarun wants, or maybe he has, but he just doesn't realize it or see it. I think Momo's response is a good one though. Okarun, while hanging on a knife's edge of facing more rejection or friendship, is told by Momo that she hates that Okarun has made assumptions about her. It's unfair to her as Okarun doesn't know much of anything about her. It makes her disgusted, which is a very strong word to use. Keep that in mind, and this checks out too, because remember in episode 1 in the very first scene? Yeah, that scene was Momo getting mad in part because one of her triggers was that this dude wad was making an assumption she's gonna put out because she's a Gyaru or something or whatever it was. As well, she realizes that Okarun is in essence protecting himself by closing himself off from not just people, but the world itself. I mean, think about it. If someone has that attitude about themselves in life, they're probably not going to think they're worthy of anything good, let alone just having a friend. It's self-sabotage. And I also do appreciate this as a man living in 2024, because men, we're on the struggle bus, at least in American society, where all of these other groups of people, they have had decades to form communities, to shore up their defenses and worked to secure themselves. But a lot of men, mostly young men, don't yet have communities or institutions or places to go to find support. And I find myself in that category as well. It is quite hard to cope with the feeling of being unwanted or having no friends or just feeling like a failure. There are other topics attached to this too, but I'm just trying to keep it as narrow as possible here. I think that this sends a message to young people, particularly young men, to not be so closed off, to show up and be present. Because if you do, that good feeling of ominous positivity creeps in, and suddenly you find yourself improving day by day. It's not the one thing that will fix that issue, mind you, but I think Momo and Okarun's talk shines a spotlight on just one way to solve it for the people it works for. It's like coffee. Some people it makes them fall asleep, and for some people it makes their heart race and they end up hating it. Point is, it's another positive interpretation of what people feel is a hopeless situation. It's not, because it's never not hopeful. The simple truth is all you need to metaphorically do is talk to the lady who can use ESP powers about ghosts and UAPs. That's all you need in life sometimes. Just joy. So what do? Well, they try to kill each other, of course. Okarun even calls Momo a skank, which is just over the top and random. Like, what does that word even mean, Okarun? Hello? Do you even know? Well, they get a ring on the doorbell, and it's not her grandmother, but it's an evil spirit. So yeah, turns out Momo messed up by taking down the talisman. So they head out the back to hopefully put the talisman back in its rightful place. Things, they don't turn out well. They are completely walled in as Momo collapses to her knees as blood runs from her nose, and the same as, that happens to Okarun as well. All because of what they figure is the black mist, which is killing them slowly. Things go from bad to worse. They face off with a gigantic statue that seems straight out of something like Gantz, which, what I would do for a Gantz remake. This leads to one of those iconic moments in Dandadan where Momo and Okarun run in tandem together away from the statue. We all love this image in the Dandadan community. But it turns out this is based on something that is real, or the story is at least, of the Flatwoods Monster. Look it up, Google it. But faced with probable death, Okarun suggests using her powers to control his brain while letting his body be taken over by the Turbo Granny curse to essentially allow him to power up. Long story short, it generally works. The downside is that anytime he's in this form, he gets depressed, which is kinda hilarious. This pisses Momo off something fierce as she jumps in the middle of facing the Flatwood Monster because she doesn't like it when he puts himself down so much, because after all, he is depressed and Momo hates depressed people. So with depressing speed, Okarun bites off the 5 fingers of the left hand of the Flatwood Monster, but is ultimately sent flying into a shed. So Momo, being Momo, uses ESP to hurl Okarun from the shed, saving him. But in a strange twist, the Flatwood Monster does a sumo pose, challenging Okarun to a battle. Let me tell you probably don't want to challenge Turbo Granny to a power, but we'll see how Okarun, we'll see how he turns out here. The organ-hungry alien has its knee immediately decimated in an incredible sequence of animation. This entire fight was just unreal. Science Saru, in my opinion, was the best studio to handle Dandadan, and I honestly, at this point, I don't think there's any other studio that could pull this off. But Momo even has a badass moment where she uses one hand to control the curse and the other to fight the Flatwood Monster. But in a tragic moment, she is caught and sent into the wall at the entrance. And you always gotta love a good impact shot with the force cratering the ground around them. God, every time I see it, I just picture Yamcha in one of those, or the Broly movie. Sadly though, it's Momo this time, but since, she's Momo, she doesn't die. But even inside of a crater, she proves she's way more tough than Yamcha ever could be, as she still has, sorry Yamcha, and Yamcha fans, it was a joke. As she still has a hold on Okarun's curse even after nearly dying. It just shows the tenacity of Momo to be there when Okarun needs it the most. The other half of that is because Momo, well, wants to take down the monster herself, because as I think this episode shows in great detail, don't piss Momo Ayase off. Yeah. But she is then pummeled repeatedly by the monster with strike after strike, ora after ora. Momo, though, smartly enough, being a smarty, dumb smarty, we'll say, that was her plan, apparently. She is now technically outside of the Torii gate and uses ESP to bring Okarun to her, catching and holding him as she places the talisman back on the Torii. Holding Okarun as if he were a precious little baby boy, which he is, by the way. Anyone voiced by Natsuki Hane is by default precious. You just can't, His voice is amazing. But everything is returned back to normal, and also, I had to admit, I laughed out loud when Momo nearly let the curse run rampant again. But I love this moment, because once again, it shows what Dandadan is about. After nearly dying, after all of that, Momo and Okarun still have the wit and the humor to take this dark moment and see the positive in it. Momo compliments Okarun on his cool new hair, which she likes. It's small, but this reveals what Momo and Okarun value: the joy of friendship. However, as the episode comes to an end, Momo passes out, which leaves Turbo Granny to feed and possibly devour upon Momo in the process. Who knows what she's gonna do to her? We'll have to see. Maybe her grandmother is gonna show up in the next episode? Dandadan's secret weapon is that it incorporates joy into every aspect. This is what I'm talking about all the time with Dandadan, by the way. It views life as an adventure, a series of life-changing moments that will bring you on this grand ride and reminds you to not do it alone. Bring other people with you on this journey, and it doesn't matter who. It could be the Gyaru in your class, the nerdy boy who doesn't know how to communicate. Hell, bring Turbo Granny along with you. In a world that is controlled by algorithms made to squeeze the blood from your veins and turn you into an emotionless monster, Momo and Okarun are a reminder to ignore that noise. Live, laugh, love, right? Show up, be present, and when that person refuses, well, refuse their self-rejection and be blunt but gentle. And that's kind of the dichotomy, isn't it? I like that. Hope for the best, expect the worst. Dandadan reminds us that it's going to be okay, I think. This episode shows the makings of that process of being okay. It first starts with putting one step forward and not passing up the chance to talk to the girl you like, put in a college application, get that job you want to get but procrastinate over. Drop those substances you know are bad for you. Go to therapy. Dandadan episode 2 tells us to do something about it. Face our worst enemy, ourselves. Guys, last video we got 600 likes. That's insane. Can we do it again? Drop a like on the video if you enjoy it. Also check out some gamer subs, y'all. I love their stuff, so order some free samples with my code at the very least. All of that will be pinned down in the comment below. I also have a channel where I cover new chapters of Dandadan weekly. We just did one on 169, so check it out in the cards. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.